Hello, crafty friends. Welcome. Today is release day at the Not Too Shabby Shop, and I'm going to create some cards using the October card box of the month. This one is a Christmas card kit, and it is called Deck the Halls. I did the unboxing in a separate video, and if you'd like to see everything that this kit includes, I will put the link to my video in the description box below. So I am starting out with card number 1. I always like to use the pattern paper and the ephemera pieces just to warm up the creative juices. I went straight for this cute green diagonal stripes pattern paper, and I'm going to pop this up with some foam strips. Inside this window, I'm going to use an ephemera piece. This is a cute little teacup with a cookie inside. I popped that up as well and used a little bit of liquid glue on the edges that overhang onto the pattern paper. Next, I'm going to add another ephemera piece, this cute swag, and we'll just put that diagonally across the card. I'll flip it over and cut off the overhang. This is going to be a very fast and simple card. I'm going to stamp out the sentiment on the inside of this card. So let's go ahead and glue this onto a white top folding card base. To add a little touch of bling, I'm going to use some of the sequins that came in the kit. They coordinate perfectly with these cardstocks and ephemera pieces. I'm going to put several of these on the card. I usually just put 3, but I really liked the colors of these sequins, so I'm going to put a few more. And here is a close-up look at card number 1. I'm going to give you a peek at the inside. I used one of the sentiments from the stamp set. It says Christmas wishes and gingerbread kisses. On card number 2, I'm going to use more pattern paper as well as ephemera pieces. I liked this piece of pattern paper that looks like glitter in the blue and silver and red. I'll add a stripe down the center of this with another piece of pattern paper. The sentiment says jingle all the way, and so I thought I'd use 3 of these bell ephemera pieces. But I'm going to have them hanging off the top of the card with ribbon. And I'm also going to cover up the bow on the sentiment ephemera piece with another green ribbon. I'll attach it using a micro dot. And then I'm going to use the same green ribbon and attach it to the back of the ephemera pieces using the foam piece that I'm putting behind it. I'll just capture that with the foam piece. And then I can flip it around, and I'm going to add some double-sided adhesive to hold it in place. And then I can just snip off the excess here. I'll do that with the other 2 bells. I'm going to pop up the sentiment as well. I should have waited until I added the 3rd bell, but this cardstock is really nice. It has kind of a sheen to it, and it allows you to easily pick up your pieces if you have them glued down with foam adhesive or dot liner and resituate them. So that's what I'm going to do with this 3rd bell. I want it to go behind the bell above it, as well as behind the sentiment. So I'm just going to carefully peel those up and reposition this. And this is a very heavyweight card or pattern paper as well. I just love working with this stuff. Let's kind of tuck that behind the top bell. And I'll put down the sentiment. Then I'll do the same thing. I'll just flip it over and tape it down with some double-sided adhesive. I'm going to attach this to another white top folding card base. And when I do that, I am going to pull off the release paper from the double-sided adhesive and add a little bit of glue. So let's attach this to the card base. It is going to have a little bit of a white border around it, just a very thin white border. I added a few clear enamel dots, and here is a close-up look at the finished card. And a peek at the inside. This is more pattern paper and a pretty floral ephemera piece. For my next card, I'm going to be using this cute stamp set. This one is called Ornamental Christmas. I'm going to do a little bit of embossing, and I'm using a new anti-static powder that I got from the rabbit hole. And it's really nice. You just kind of brush it on. The bristles are really soft, and it works just great. So let's ink up this stamp with some Versamark ink. And then I'm going to use some white embossing powder. I'm using some cardstock from Spellbinders, and I'm going to stamp it out on the green as well as the pink. If you want to make some really fast cards, it helps to stamp them out on colored cardstock because it gives you a base color to start with. Once I'm done heat embossing these 3 Christmas bulbs, I'm going to fussy cut them out. And then I'm going to add just a little bit of shading with some Copic markers. I like to do my stamping all at once and then do my heat embossing all at once while my heat tool is warmed up. So let's wipe off the anti-static powder with a tissue. Before I cut them out, I am going to do my coloring first. So I'm going to grab, I'll show you the red one, and I'm going to grab some red Copic markers. I'll start with the darkest one first, just to add a little bit of shading here and there. It doesn't need a lot. And then if you do get Copic markers on your white embossed lines, you can use the 0 marker just to brush over it, and it will take the Copic markers off of your lines. It just cleans them up beautifully. But I'm adding just a little touch of shading to this, and then I'll feather it out with the lighter red. I think Copic markers look really pretty on the colored cardstock. I'm only going to show the coloring on this red bulb, but I do the same thing with the pink cardstock and the green cardstock. I just use a little bit of darker Copic markers on these to add shadows. When I fussy cut these out, I do leave a little bit of a border around the bulb. I just like to have that little border around them. But you could, of course, cut right up to the line if that's what you prefer. However, before I fussy cut them, I am going to stamp a sentiment on each of these bulbs. So let's add a little bit of shading to the bulb part of this, just to give it a little touch of dimension. I'm following the curve of the bulb with this dark red Copic marker. And then again, I'm going to feather it out and soften the hard edge with the lighter red. This red pretty much matches the color of the cardstock, but it just helps to soften the lines. So this stamp set comes with a lot of sentiments that you can stamp inside the bulbs. And I'm going to stamp out a different sentiment on each one. Sorry, my head gets in the way there. I just have to look over it sometimes to make sure it's straight. Let's add the anti-static powder. On this bulb, I'm going to stamp out the sentiment that says cheers. And we'll add a little more white embossing powder to this. And I stamped all of them, or all 3 of these out, and I pour over the white embossing powder, and then again I melt them all at once. And here they are, ready to go. This is going to be a mini slimline card. I usually create slimline cards that are 3 by 6. This one's going to be just a little bit bigger so that I can fit all 3 of these bulbs on it. So it's 3.5 by 6.5. I popped up all 3 bulbs with some foam adhesive. And I just love the look of the colored cardstock on this card. I'm using this pretty pattern paper that has this block text on it that says Happy Holidays. I'll add a few sequins to this. I'm trying to put the same colors next to the bulbs So I have a green one, a pink one, and a red one. And then I decided to add some clear glitter pen over this, over just the bulb part. And it sure adds a fun holiday touch to this. And I'm being pretty liberal with this glitter pen. Okay, so here it is all done. I'm trying to catch the glitter in the light so you can see that gorgeous glitter. And then I do decorate all of the insides of these cards. So here's a peek at this one. It's pretty simple, just a strip of pattern paper and an ephemera chain piece. Next, I'm going to create a regular sized slimline card. And I like to create 3.5 by 8.5 sized slimlines. I'm going to create my own pattern paper for this. I love all of the cookies from this stamp set. This one is called Gingerbread Kisses, and there are 4 different gingerbread cookies that you can stamp out, as well as some really large sentiments. So this stamp set is just fabulous. I have kind of a hole at the top, but I'm going to cover that with a sentiment. Then I'm using some of the smaller stamps to fill in the gaps between the cookies. There's a cute bow, a gummy candy, what are they called, gumdrops, and a star. For the sentiment on this card, I'm going to be using some oxide inks. I'm starting with spun sugar at the top. And I'm going to pull in a cloth here just to soften the edge so I don't have a harsh line when I stamp this out. I'll kind of clean up the door of my Mini Misty. It got kind of messy there. The next ink I'm going to use is called Kitsch Flamingo. We'll put that in the middle, and I want to have a nice transition between the 3 colors that I'm using. So here's the Kitsch Flamingo. And again, I'm going to bring in my microfiber cloth just to soften the edges. And then the last color I have is Festive Berries. I love these 3 colors together. The Festive Berries is almost red, but it does have a touch of pink in it. So this will go at the bottom. And then I do this whole process over again just to get the sentiment nice and dark, but I only show you the one stamping in the video. Once that is done, I'm going to stamp it again with Versamark ink because I want to emboss this image or this sentiment. So I'm going to pull it out and pour over some clear embossing powder this time. And it's going to add a nice shine to the sentiment and even just a little bit of dimension. So it's a nice technique. So let's pour over the clear embossing powder and melt this. And look how shiny it is. It's so pretty. I do end up cutting out this sentiment with a rectangle die. Next, I'm going to add a little bit of vintage photo to the edge of my pattern background. This just makes it pop a little bit more, I think. We'll go around every side. I already created my card base with some Poppy Field red cardstock. And then I'm going to glue this down flat. My sentiment and all of my gingies, I'm going to pop up with some foam tape. But aren't those cute? I colored them in off camera for the sake of time with more Copic markers. I'll add a few sequins around this card, and here's a close-up look. You can make up so many darling Christmas cards with this set. It's so much fun. And here's a peek at the inside. My next card is going to be another slimline card. I'm using the 3rd stamp set from this kit, which is called Merry Mugs. And there are 3 different mugs. I stamped them out and colored them in with Copic markers. Once I've completed my coloring, I do like to pop them back in my Misty and stamp them up again. This just brightens up the lines a little bit. I'm going to fussy cut these out, but before I do that, I'm going to use some of the cute sentiment stamps from this set and stamp a sentiment on each of the mugs. These are great for Christmas or even just winter time. I think they could go for any time of year, actually. I'm going to use another piece of oatmeal cookie cardstock and add a little bit of oxide ink just to brighten it up a little bit behind these mugs. On my card base, I'm going to add some of the chevron pattern paper. And the pattern paper is 6 by 6, but you can cut it and match it up just perfectly. You won't even be able to see the seam, as you can see there. It's very hard to see the seam. Let's trim off the overhang. This card, again, is a 3.5 by 8.5. And let's add the oatmeal cookie cardstock onto this. And then I'm going to pop up all 3 mugs with some foam pieces and just have them going down the front of the card. So this card has a lot of different sentiments on it, but that's okay. I think it's just a fun card to send out into the mail. And then here is the 3rd mug. I want them all to be slightly touching. I added a lot more of the sequins on the front of this card. And here's a peek at the inside. I stamped "Have a Sweet Christmas" on the inside. So this card has a lot of sentiments going on, but I love how this one turned out. On my last card, I'm using more of the pattern paper, but I wanted to add just a touch of color onto it. So I'm adding spun sugar as well as a little bit of festive berries. This is going to be a gnome card. They seem to be so popular lately. But I'm just adding a little bit of color to the pattern paper as well as to the snow cardstock that the gnomes will be standing on. I'll glue the snow hill down flat, and then I'll pop up the gnomes. I have a hard time saying gnomes because I know there's a G there and I want to say gnomes, but I know it's gnomes, so I have a hard time with that word. But I'm going to pop them up with some foam tape. There is a video hop as well as a giveaway going along with the release of this card box, and I'll have all of the information about that listed in the description box below. But you could win a $25 gift certificate to the Not Too Shabby Shop. And of course, I'll have all of the links to the products that I use, as well as to this wonderful card kit listed below as well. I'm going to add another bow over the bow on the ephemera piece, just to give it a little more dimension. And then I'm going to stamp the sentiment that says "Coffee with my Gnomies." And here's a close-up look at the last card. Thanks so much for spending some of your time with me today. I hope that you were inspired, and I hope you get a chance to sit down and create some fun cards. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Bye.